Hello and welcome to a live chat where TikTok will limit me. Just waiting for TikTok to notify all 300,000 people, but they won't notify all 300,000, they'll notify two or three. And literally just started this live, literally just started it. Because I know people come in and they go, oh no, there's only one person in here, run away, run Forrest, run. But literally it's just started, so more people will probably join. So if you don't know who I am, welcome to the people that's just joining. I am the guy that does those videos, that does the debunking videos of all those other people that do videos on the Anunnaki, because without sounding big-headed, I am the foremost expert on the Anunnaki, and I know it sounds big-headed, but there's really only about 5 people that look into the Anunnaki, and I'm the better one out of the 5 because I don't lie and make up stuff. So welcome everyone. Hi History and Coins, how are you? I hope you're well. Hi to everyone else that's joining. So as you probably, hi Andy, hope you're well. I wonder if that's the same Andy that's now changed his name. And Anna's joined as well, or Annie. Hi Anne, how are you? Hope you're well. And Paul has wrote hi as well. Namaste, Andy's wrote. Any day will do. So welcome guys, while I just started this live. Bobby's wrote, and Bobby's here. You mustn't forget Bobby. Hi Bobby, nice of you to join. So just to start, while I wait for people to join or ask questions, I have finished my Anunnaki movie. There's a few people that have watched it, and so far, the people that have watched it, the common word that's been used is brilliant, which is fantastic because I am a filmmaker anyway. So kind of without, it's going to sound really big-headed. The movies that I do are sort of 7, 8, and 9 on IMDb. So I won't let a bad film go out. That's the difference, I guess, between me and Hollywood. Hollywood, you know when you're shooting a movie, you know whether or not this is going to be a dud. You do. I don't care what they say. You know, you can feel it because you watch what they call you watch the dailies and things like that. You just know that it's not. If a good director, should I say, a good director should be able to go, hang on a minute, this isn't gonna work. I'm probably gonna need crap load of rewrites and crap load of reshoots. As a director myself, I know that. If it's not feeling right, if it's not just not working, then you know it. So anyway, I won't let a film go out without it being something. The test that I have is because, sorry if I'm boring you on the film making side of it, but when I'm making a movie, I have to put myself in the position of someone watching it for the very first time. Not all directors do that. They're very, they're all caught up in their own film. I have to sit there and think, okay, that line of dialogue, will someone need to digest that? I know it sounds like a lot, because obviously normal people don't sit there and talk, but people think while someone's talking, you're thinking now. But if I bombard you in 2 hours worth of just non-stop, chatter or dialogue or information, you can't take it in. So you need these. So anyway, I don't know how I got on the subject of all that, but the film's done, and it is good. I was going to watch a film last night, and I stuck on that film, even though I've seen it loads of times because it's good. So anyway, History and Coins wrote, Bobby's waved hands and put a laughing face. History and Coins wrote, yeah, not bad, not staying long as it's 3 a.m. History and Coins wrote, it's brilliant, and so honest. So History and Coins is one of the people that's I've allowed to watch early. It does come out on the 19th of September for everyone to watch, free of charge. There's going to be YouTube link. You can download it on BitTorrent on that day. So you can have a full, I think it's 15 gig version if you want, to try and get the best quality out of it. And it does leave you on a cliffhanger, and there's loads of open ends because there's basically 8 movies in total. So this was the first one, and it's 2 hours pretty much. So thank you, History and Coins, for your opinion of the film. I loved when you sent me the message and everything, that you thought it was great. So that's really good. Paul is right. I can't wait to see it. Unfortunately, it's out on the 19th. I know it seems like a long time away, but I needed to try and build up some sort of hype on it, because it obviously cost me time and money. It took about 6 to 7 months to make, which isn't long, because I was sort of doing my day job as well. But the last film that I'd done took 2 years to finish, from start to finish. We had reshoots and things like that. So that was a proper movie, whereas this one is AI, which I know there's people that say, "Oh, I hate AI." My daughter says, "Oh, you're stealing because AI's copying off of other things to learn what it learns to be able to do what it does," which in some degree is correct. But if I go out and I shoot a particular type of shot that I like, that Spielberg may have done, am I copying that? Well, yes, I'm probably doing the same sort of thing. I mean, pretty much all the camera shots have been done to death over the years. So, and most stories have been done to death. But anyway, to me, it's a medium, and it is unfortunate. It's here to stay. There's no way around it. People are using it now for everything. So it's here, and I wanted to make a movie with AI. I was one of the first people to make a 3D movie, with the new cameras, etc. Way back in a previous life, a long time ago now. But so I like to pioneer, and so I figured once the technology was just about right, bearing in mind this is 6-7 months ago, I thought, okay, I'll give it a go, and I did one scene. And I was really happy. And I used Kling, because Kling at the time was the only one that had 1080p. Now, there's other Sea Dance and whatever else. But I still don't like them. I don't like Sea Dance. I know people love it for their little short movies, but when you're trying to do a feature length, trying to keep consistency, it's not easy with Sea Dance at all. And then, you put up a picture and it says, "Oh, no, not valid." What do you mean not valid? Because it thinks it's someone real, and so it won't allow you to do it. So anyway, that's the film side of it. So yes, it is a good film. I know I keep saying that, but it is. It's something I'd watch again and again, and hopefully you guys will too. Scrolling down, History and Coins wrote, "You can't tell it's AI." Oh, thank you very much, History and Coins. I tried my damnedest. Obviously, AI does have some quirks in it, but I tried my hardest. That's why it cost about, I think, what was it, about $7,000, which is nothing. It's $1,000 a month if you look at it that way. But because it doesn't, you have to direct it. You can't just click a button and say okay, because the head's in the wrong place, their faces look different, and their arms in the wrong place. Each shot, it's basic continuity issues like you would get on a normal film. So it's, you have to be a filmmaker to be able to do that. I don't mean to sound really rude, but you do. You kind of need to know what shots you need and how to get the shots you need. I know I'm probably boring you. I'm boring you, aren't I? And Annie's wrote, "That's true. It's so good." Thank you. History and Coins wrote, "I love that it leaves you waiting in certain places for the next one." Yeah, I don't want to spoil him. Hi, Mary. Thank you, Mary. I don't want to spoil it for you, History, because I know you've seen it, but the other people haven't. But you remember where Dr. Geroid in the movie says that we should have a hub, because it obviously keep meeting in his office isn't a great idea for, the men in black or the women in black finding them. So the sequel starts with them scouting out a warehouse, which they end up doing up as a hub. So it becomes a bit more serious for them, which is really good because it introduces a couple of new characters, etc. So you're going to love the sequel, and it goes underwater as well. So the sequel, I know I'm boring you guys, but the sequel, Tomb Raider, the game, where the camera follows behind over the shoulder of Lara. The movies were crap. Let's be honest, they were. I tried to watch Lara Croft the other day, the first one with Angelina Jolie. I turned it off about 25 minutes in. It was crap. It was. I mean, you could say all you want, but it wasn't as good as what it should have been. And none of them are, I don't think. So I'm going to spoil it here for you. So I did a movie once to do with Carry On. I'm not going to spoil it. So I went up to Peter Rogers, who was the producer of the Carry On movies when I was in Pinewood, and this isn't name dropping. And I said to him, look, what you need to do is forget the Julian Clary, because they'd just done that stupid Julian Clary Carry On film that no one's, Carry On Columbus I think it was called, that no one remembers. So I explained to him what he needs to do, and he didn't. He was 90 something, so he weren't going to do another Carry On. But at the time, they were talking about doing another Carry On. That's why I said to him, "What you need to do is this." And I did it, and I think it's 9 out of 10 on IMDb. Even my friend, who doesn't like to admit that he likes my movies, actually said, "Frickin' hell, that one's spot on." So anyway, sorry, it sounds like I'm bigging myself up here. But the Tomb Raider idea, I'm going to do, so basically a certain percentage of the sequel will be like Tomb Raider. The proper Tomb Raider, how it should be, with a camera over the shoulder, where she's jumping up high, where she's trying to, swing across, where she's got the water down below. You're going to love the sequel. If you like Tomb Raider, people will be going, this is the Tomb Raider that should have been made. Hollywood, take note. That's what people will say. I hope. Anyway, I'll shut up now. Scrolling down, Samantha's wrote, "Good evening, Outro History. Absolutely excited for the sequel." Samantha's another person that saw the Anunnaki Search for Gold movie, and the comments that I got from Samantha was, I went to bed. I read it just before I went to bed after she'd watched it, and she sent me the message, and I was buzzing all night, really, to be honest with you, because it's, when you do something passion, and then someone says it's brilliant, it's just like, wow, that's great. That's all I ever wanted to hear on this movie, because obviously I know it's not the way normal movies are made. Mary's wrote, "Laugh out loud, I liked it." The original Tomb Raider, did you? I couldn't just no. I turned it off. I really did. I thought the acting was crap. I thought the dialogue was really poor, and just the whole thing, fighting robots at the beginning and all that kind of stuff. But I'm glad someone liked it. Sorry, Mary, but it was to me it was rubbish. Then all right, I'll let you have that one. History and Coins wrote, "As I said on Samantha's video, if I stay awake right through a film, it's kept me excited right through." Oh, thank you. That's lovely to hear. So just to let everyone know again, there's a 2-hour movie that I've made. Certain people have now watched it. It's due out on the 19th of September. You can click the notify button on YouTube if you go and search for the Search for Gold, Anunnaki Search for Gold, or go to my website, Anunnaki Film, or one word, AnunnakiFilm.com. Darwin's wrote, Hi Darwin, nice of you to join. Hope you're well. I hope you're having a nice day. History and Coins wrote, so the crosses of me are going to be more about me. Yes. History. Okay, that's a private thing that History and Coins had said about some of the characters in the movie. Yes, it will be. Mary's wrote, I did. Well, I'm glad someone liked it. I really didn't. I think the sequel was a bit better, but yeah, still not. When you see my sequel, which will be more like Tomb Raider, hopefully you'll go, yeah, that's how it should have been done. That's what. If you don't, I'll find you. No, I'm joking. But no, hopefully you liked it. Mary's wrote, I liked the male lead. The first one had Daniel Craig in it, so I don't know if that's the character you're referring to, or there was a couple of male sort of leadish people in it. So I don't know if that's the one you're referring to. History and Coins, but laugh out loud, or laughing faces. So while I've got you guys here, so I am the person that does those videos about Anunnaki. not just movies, but you know, you name it, I do it. So if you've got any questions about our past, you know, and the funny thing is, there was a video the other day that I just did a stitch with where a religious person said, "Oh, what was God doing before he created the universe?" And I'm like, no, he doesn't say he created the universe. That's us interpreting the Bible as the universe, which is a really stupid thing to do, because when we realise that the planet that we're on now is actually older than the start of what we would class as the start of the universe. So basically, we've dated Earth as 2.6 billion years old and said, okay, that's the start of the universe, or start of our solar system at least. And the asteroid belts is made up of the same material as us. So they said, okay, the asteroid belt's a fouled planet, also at 5.6 billion years old. So if both of us are 5.6 billion years old, that's the start of the solar system. That's their argument. And you know, the moon where it is now, they believe that it came here around the same time. Well, in fact, they actually think it's part of Earth, but it's not. So basically what happened was a planet called Tiamat, in between Jupiter and Mars, where the asteroid belt is now, got smashed up. That then became Earth and the asteroid belt, and that is why Earth is older than the certain places they found that they now say, hang on a minute, it's older than the solar system. How can that be? It's because they've measured it off of the asteroid belt and Earth, not off of the planet, not off when it actually started the solar system. So it could have been a few million years prior, or even just a million years prior, that Tiamat was formed. So we got the tablets in the British Museum that talk about Tiamat being formed as one of the first planets, or the first planet. We had Apsu with an S, Apsu, not Abzu, Apsu, which would have been the sun, and then Tiamat gave birth, according to the Sumerian Anunnaki tablets, gave birth to, in other words, broke up and parts came off of it, gave birth to Lachmu and Lamu, which was Venus and Mars. So all I'm saying is, when the Bible person says, "Oh, what was God doing before he created the universe?" He didn't create the universe. Don't make up stuff. Don't put words in the Bible that wasn't there. So basically, what it actually says, if you do the proper translations, it says God's preparing heaven and earth. It doesn't say God created heaven and earth. It says God's preparing heaven and earth. And what that's referring to is the planets were called deities, which means gods. We call them gods. So the planets were forming, preparing. Again, go back to the Enumeralia, and it tells you that they had what they called stations. We call them orbits. They called them stations. So when you read that and it says, they're trying to get into their station, you go, it's clear as day. But yeah, that's what happens with religious people. They will dump in what they want into the Bible. Mary's wrote Gerard Butler. Was he? I don't think he was in Tomb Raider 1 or 2. Unless I stopped it again before he popped in. Was he? I don't think he was in. Unless you're referring to a different Tomb Raider. I was referring to. Well, I think they're all really rubbish, to be honest. But Samantha wrote, there can be no doubt about the professional film director you are. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, that's very kind of you to say. I mean, I have been doing it since I was 15. So I've filmed music videos for Level. Some of you probably don't even know who these people are. Level 42, Joan Armour Trading. I've done corporate videos for Warner's, companies that don't even exist anymore. Music Choice, IMP. The list just goes on and on. Had my own business filming, going out filming and stuff like that, as well as making movies as well. So yeah, lots and lots of stuff, all good fun. The one thing about filming, I must say, is it helps you focus, because you need to think about everything. You need to think about the angles, the lighting, the characters, the delivery of the lines. It really does make you a an all-rounder. History and Coins wrote, what about this one that is saying about the Emerald Tablets? I'm waiting for his response. Yeah, the guy's a numpty. I know, he's a numpty. So basically there was a character on one of these posts where I point out that I did a stitch, I think it was, for someone else that was saying that the Anunnakis had a fight with another race. And I said, there's no evidence of that whatsoever. And then someone that follows me, I can't believe it, he must have brass balls, comes on and says, Anunnaki and the Archons. Now you know I've looked into the Archons. And some people basically believe that the Archons are some sort of spirit form. So I said, there's no evidence that the Anunnaki had a fight with any Archons. I said they do mention spirits, but there's no mention of them having a fight. And then he goes, oh, you're confusing yourself. And I'm like, no, I don't think I am. It doesn't work like that, not me. So I said, okay, show me the evidence then that the Anunnaki had the fight with the Archons. And of course then he didn't. And then History and Coins then piped up and said, hey, come on, tell us something. And then he replied back to History and Coins. And of course then I said, right, no, you still got to, don't avoid me. Don't reply to History and Coins and don't avoid me. Tell me the evidence that you've got for... And then I did my normal thing. I know, I'm big-headed, I know. I wrote down, look, what's going to happen is, this is how it always plays out, every single person that sort of challenges me. I said, what's going to happen is I'll ask you for the evidence, you won't have it, I'll call you a numpty, you'll get angry with me, you'll block me, or you'll be rude and da-da-da. I said, let's just cut to the chase and just admit you're wrong. So we're waiting for his reply. I know I sound big-headed, but that's the way it goes. It really does. Go read any of the messages. They all disappear. The people just don't come back. Samantha's wrote to Mary. Gerard Butler, oh my God, he's yummy, my favourite. I thought he was cool in 300. He looked cool, you know, he worked out and everything. I used to work out many years ago. That was a long time ago. Samantha's wrote, the 2 hours flew by. This is referring to my movie, I guess. When you're having fun, time flies, they say. I.e. brilliant. The film, brilliant. Thank you very much, Samantha. Thank you. I hope you're going to love the sequels as well. History and Coins wrote, oh, I remember Joan. Not sure, Joan. Samantha's wrote, yes, I know who level... Oh, Joan Armatrading, that was... Sorry, when I was saying Joan Armatrading. And Samantha's wrote, yes, I know who level 42 are. I'm old. I know. It's embarrassing saying that I made music videos for them. And now they're gone. History and Coins wrote to Samantha, that means I'm old too. History of Coins wrote, I told him he was confused. Yeah, I saw that. He won't reply. They just disappear. And the other thing, while I'm waiting for any questions on Anunnaki, aliens, anything like that, spirits, whatever, Bigfoots. The other thing is there's been a lot of people out there pushing out the Anunnaki are black, because basically they can just use AI and knock up a black image or a black video, AI video of a black person that they claim is the Anunnaki. And I still get into the arguments to this day. And someone replied back with a picture of an Anunnaki sitting down, and then they knocked up an AI image. It wasn't even an Anunnaki, it was actually a Sumerian person, because they don't even know the difference between Anunnaki and Sumerian. But so they knocked up an AI image to match the identical pose and everything else of a black person, and they goes, there you go, sitting in the same place with the same beard, Bet one's a carving and one's an AI image. And even someone that doesn't even follow me wrote AI. I mean, that's their argument to try and say that the Anunnaki were black, is by finding a carving of an Anunnaki, or a Sumerian in this case, and then using AI to turn that carving into a real image, but with a black person. That's the way they do it. That's terrible. And I'm not being racist or anything. It's just I don't, obviously I've done the research, and the research shows that the first Homo sapiens were dark skinned. I mean, that's pretty much obvious because the Africa is where they put them to work. We know they told us they come from Africa. Basically, that's where the oldest. And funny enough, about a week ago, there was they found this wood that was interlocking. In other words, someone had used tools to create this wood, and they dated it to. Wait for it. They dated it to. I think they dated it to 500,000 years ago, and then they put a plus and minus in brackets of 35,000 years. Anunnaki were here 445,000 years. So, in other words, that's what they're looking at, something that the Anunnaki had made, and they don't even know it. How stupid are they? They're like, wow, humans 500,000 or 445,000 years ago didn't know they could do this. Yeah, and that's true. Go look it up. You'll see that they found this thing. It was in guess where it was? I'll give you a clue. Africa. Where do you think the Anunnaki were doing the mining? Africa. It's a no-brainer. Oh dear. And we didn't even come along, so we know it would have been the Anunnakis, because Homo sapiens didn't come along until 300,000 years ago. So it was 145,000 years after the Anunnaki had been here. Now you could say, oh well, it was Neanderthal, or you could say, which Neanderthal isn't really there, they were at the top of Levant, or you could say it was Homo erectus, which if my memory serves me, wasn't even in that location either. So they're going to say, oh, it was a woolly mammoth that made it. Oh, crazy. History and contract. What do you think of the videos I've sent you about what's seen in the Australian bush Yeti? I do get sent a lot of videos. I mean, I have done research into the Yeti. I do believe there is a creature that matches the description of a Bigfoot, with all the same characteristics as well. That seems to be in Australia. Now you could say, well, how the hell did it get from Russia, China, and America all the way over to Australia? But of course, if you go with my research and my belief that the Anunnaki arrived here or crashed here before the land bridge, in other words, prior to the Great Flood, then Christ knows how many. I mean, mainstream say that there was land bridges through Siberia. That's how we ended up with people in Indonesia, etc., which probably isn't the case, but they may have travelled. So if people can get to Indonesia, etc., they could probably have got, or Bigfoots could have got to, and obviously they are more intelligent than the first Homo sapiens, and they are probably a lot stronger. I mean, supposedly they're 10 times as strong as us. So if they was coming across, I mean, we've seen videos, or you've probably seen them, where they're carrying deer under their arm. I mean, no bloke could do that in a suit. And we're talking prior to AI. So I've seen footage of them carrying deers literally under one arm, a freaking huge, real dead deer, as they walk. So they've got more chance of surviving if they spread across, went to Australia, for example, because where we would have had to have had sticks and stuff to fight certain animals, the size of the Bigfoot and the strength of the Bigfoot probably would have. I mean, we know that they twist people's heads, and they twist dogs' heads 360 degrees when they kill them, and they do the same with deers. But what they also do with deers, if ideally they don't want to kill it, what they do is they break its leg, and then they carry it home, wherever their home is, and they do that because they want it fresh, and they basically want to, I guess, eat it while it's almost alive, instead of breaking its neck and decomposing by the time they get back to wherever their base is. So I guess it depends on how far away the deer is compared to their location of where they want to take it. So yes, I do think Yeti is a creature in Australia. I mean, Australia is huge, as you know, so you probably know it better than me. You live there, but just even the outback is just humongously big. So you could probably get lost out there, and no one will ever find you again. So if the Bigfoots are out there, and there is probably enough food for them to eat, I would imagine. The joeys and even crocodiles if they could capture them. Samantha's right, I'm a bit confused. Was Greys here before the Anunnaki, or we don't know? No records before. So it's a fair question. Go number 3 in the class for that. So the way it seems is the Anunnaki were here from 445,000 years ago. No one else was here. They would have asked for help otherwise, and so especially with the Greys, they got so much more technology. So there's no mention of any other species here. Around the time of the flood, so we're talking 11, 12,000 years ago, when the Younger Dryas had just finished, about 10,000 years ago, so in other words 8,000 BC, there have been like the Nazca mummy and the Mexican mummies have been found and have been dated. I mean, we all know the dating's not always correct, but they've been dated to around 10,000 years ago. So this means it would have been after the flood. Now, that to say that they came after the flood, or were they here before the flood and didn't know about the flood and then got buried in, and that's why they become mummified? But what we can take from all of this is that those ones, the Nazca mummies, the Mexican mummies, and even the Ebens 1 and 2 from the SOM 101 Special Operations Manual, they all have elongated skulls, all of them. The Anunnaki do not have elongated skulls. Humans, when Emetep II came along, he was the first to have an elongated skull. He was born to Isis, or at least delivered by Isis, because we've got the carving of that, with an elongated skull. And so the genuine elongated skulls, not the headbound ones, the genuine elongated skulls were put in positions of power, clearly because they're more intelligent than us. I mean, even Midas, King Midas, they found his father's tomb, and he had an elongated skull. Dun dun dun, believe it or not. So chances are King Midas himself had an elongated skull, even though they're still a bit unsure whether it's genuinely his dad or King Midas himself. That's Penn Museum saying this, not me. But they found gold material from King Midas. Anyone remember the story of King Midas? And Penn Museum themselves have said that they studied how this gold got onto this material, because it's not something that we could do, and then they analysed it, and basically it's a technique that no one's ever thought of before, and yet King Midas was using it to create things into gold. So clearly more intelligent than us, because if I could make gold, I'd be doing it all day long. So they put the elongated skulled humans, and I believe from all my research that the Anunnaki used another alien race to mix with us. So in other words, a Nazca mummy, a Mexican mummy, or Eben 1, Eben 2, to mix with humans to create a newer human with an elongated skull, which they put in positions of power, and they did. All of the genuine elongated skulls were in positions of power, whether they were pharaohs, kings, leaders, and we're not just talking Egypt, we're talking Albania, just basically Mesoamerica. They went everywhere, and they were in charge. And the followers of those elongated skulled humanoids bound the children's head to emulate their leaders, and that's the way we ended up with headbound ones. So going back to your question, from my research, I do believe the greys of any kind, and I'll use that as a modern alien, were around about 10,000 years ago. So they weren't. I don't believe they were here at all up until either just before the flood or just after the flood. And then from that moment on, some of them got stuck here. I mean, there's the I think it's called the Droper stones that allegedly had information about a crashed craft in China, in a cave in China. So there's, so basically, I think around the world there was, and if we believe that the Mexico artifacts that are coming out, with the elongated skulls and the ones that people now show on TikTok and sell on YouTube and stuff, sell on eBay. If those artifacts are real, and I highly doubt they're all real, to be honest with you, no one would. If you crashed on another planet, would you sit and make knickknacks? Would you really? Or would you tell the people living on that planet to make knickknacks and have a little UFO that you can lift the lid up and you see a little alien inside? Would you really do that? There's no, they haven't found anything like, oh, here's a ray gun, or here's the spaceship, or here's a flywheel, or a starter motor, or anything. But what they do find is, oh, here's another elongated skull with loads of images carved all over it, out of stone or out of some sort of I wouldn't say gem, but whatever the material is. And the people that's pushing those and saying, look, these are genuine alien skulls, not real skulls, but skulls pertaining to be an alien skull. Look, they glow in the dark. Now, funny enough, I have actually looked into that. There's a cave in Mexico, there's probably more than one, where when you go up to the wall with a certain light, which is the same light you would use to see that these artifacts glow, the wall glows. So it's not, it's not like, oh, these artifacts came from another planet and they just scattered them around and buried them and hoped we'd find them. It's more than likely this material's being dug out of a cave, and when you put it under a UV light, it's fluorescence. So yeah, so when you look all into it, it does. But yes, I do think the aliens came here after or just around the time of the flood. Jibber Jabber has wrote, wow. I'm not sure what that's referring to, but hopefully it's good. And then Jibber Jabber's wrote, wow, I never. Don't say never, say never. Come on, Jibber Jabber. You know you want to. Just do it. Sorry. History and Coins, you only live once, Jibber Jabber. History and Coins wrote, the one that you said that's scary, the miners were peeking out of the window at it. Yeah, I mean, there's stories that the Bigfoots use mines. There's a really famous case from the early 1900s, I think, don't quote me on it, on the date. And basically what happened was these Confederates, those type of people back then, they had guns, and they saw this creature, and they'd heard stories of this creature. I think there was about 6 of them, and they chased this creature into a cave, which was an old mine. I don't know if you guys know the story. And they come across human bones in there, so they thought, oh crap, this thing's been eating people. And they eventually found it and killed it, dragged it back, shot it, dragged it back, and the body went missing, but the people still told their story. So they do seem to use mines now. There's other possibilities as well, certainly being underground. There is a possibility that they move a tree, go underneath it, and then lift the tree back up. So many people has heard trees falling, or the sound of tree falling, which could be also being pushed back up. And then there's other people that have heard some sort of sounds under the ground, as if it's talking. That obviously the Bigfoot do talk. If you ever listen to any of their recordings that people's captured, they do talk in a obviously not our language, but in their language. And people have heard that, standing by a tree, they're thinking, well, hang on a minute, something's under this tree. I can hear. So if you put all that together, then, and the fact that they are nocturnal, and the fact that a lot of people say they have red eyes even during the day, then the chances are they are nocturnal, in which case they prefer the dark. Now you could say, well, they prefer the dark because they're frightened of us, but if they are nocturnal, that would explain why they live underground, because they don't, the light under there is. And there's other stories about people being kidnapped by Bigfoot and being taken to a cave where there's fluorescent moss on the walls of the cave. So in other words, the Bigfoots don't see totally in dark, but still, anyway, it's scary. It's scary indeed. History and culture. I'm wondering if it's a huge spirit or yeti. I mean, technically, from my perspective, spirits you don't generally see. So I would say it's probably a Bigfoot. Samantha's right. I don't believe life regeneration. It's suggestive. How do you believe Dolores is right? So that's an interesting question. Sorry, I'm sitting on a beanbag. It's an interesting question. So the reason why, so Dolores is wrong on aliens. I mean, she said that we was created at the same time as the universe, which is stupid. So if we was here that amount of time since the start of the universe, we are thick. We've certainly not evolved. But regarding her hypnoregressions, etc., yeah, I do. I think the orb joins with the pineal gland, an entity, an orb, spirit, whatever you want to call it, and an entity joins with the pineal gland, just like a hard drive. It does learn. You can look it up. A plasma connected to a pineal gland could learn. You could actually store the information from what you see, think, etc. through the pineal gland, which blew my mind when I looked into that. And then when you die, that orb just travels into another person. So I do think that the new person that's got the orb sometimes retains some of the traits of the previous person. We can kind of see that with birthmarks, and especially when people have near-death experiences where someone dies and a different orb jumps in, and then they come back to life and they can speak a different language, different accent, even a dead language. So in other words, as an adult, you can process the information that you're taking from the orb, but as a baby, you don't, obviously. So you could end up being a prodigy, or have certain skills as you grow up young, or even remember the previous life that orb was with. So I think that all makes sense. I mean, if you looked into University of Virginia's research, that's pretty much what they don't say about the orb, but they say that the children remembering a past life. Of course, they say it's the children's past life, but we know it can't be their own past life, because that means we don't have our own soul. And of course, you go all the way back to the very first person who got their own soul, and his wife got their own soul, and it just doesn't work like that. So it has to be orbs. And of course, when you listen to the stories of abductions from aliens and remote viewers, etc., talking about the orbs, it seems that the orbs are very much the centre of everything, in terms of what aliens want from the orbs. I mean, if you listen to Linda Moulton Howe, she said that 3 different lots of alien races are basically stealing each other's orbs. Now, if that's the case, why would they steal someone's orb? Because if you can steal someone's orb, just like having a near-death experience, and you can remember, by having a different orb jump in you, and connected with your pineal gland, if you can now speak a different language, remember things that you shouldn't be able to remember as an adult, because you have the ability to understand things as opposed to a child. If I got hold of, the military's person that has all the secret codes, that kind of thing. So that's what I think the aliens are fighting each other for, because if you have access to someone's memories, then it's probably a good thing if you're going to go to war with someone, so you can find out what they've been up to and where their bases are and all sorts of things. That's my opinion from all the research that I've done. Scrolling down, Bella's wrote, hi Bella, nice of you to join, hope you're well. Real Silvanus has put eyes in a farm up. Hi there, how you doing? The Wayfinders wrote, hello friends. Hi Wayfind. Nice of you to join. I think it's a Scottish flag. D Boy has wrote, it said their power comes for cosmic order. Would they be able to predict to current day of astronomy? I'm guessing you're referring to the Anunnaki. It said that the power comes from the cosmic order. I'm not sure what power that would be. Obviously, when you read the stories of the Anunnaki, they didn't really have any power here. They just did what they did, and sometimes messed up, and sometimes it worked. But going to the question, would they be able to predict current day off of astronomy? I don't think so. I know they were obviously heavily into astronomy. I mean, the Dendera star size map on the ceiling and stuff like that. That was all done by the Anunnaki. Especially when you know who the Egyptian gods were as Anunnaki, you realise exactly who it was. So they valued the star systems, and I think that's I think they even was the ones that created the Anthika, however you pronounce it, the mechanism, which was found just off of Greece, I think it was, in a shipwreck, which basically was a device which you would wind, and it would basically tell you the alignment of the stars. Now, why, to a normal person, why would we care? You could say, well, we kind of need to know when it's summer, winter, for harvesting. No problem at all. You can kind of figure that out without needing to know where Jupiter is, where, Taurus, where Gemini, where all the star signs are. You can live your life without needing to know all that. So it's clearly something for them that they were interested in more than us. Now, obviously, from their position on their planet that goes around from Pluto all the way past Pluto, all the way around in between Jupiter and Mars, their star systems would look different to our star systems in the sky, just from the angle and the speed that they're moving and stuff like that. So did they prefer ours? Is that why they got excited by it? Because we are not moving as far as they do, so we kind of had more of a fixed reference as opposed to them. Is that what made them use our stuff? Because obviously they've been around for, technically for their point, over 1 million years in our solar system. However, in our time, they've been in our solar system for 4.6 billion, or whatever it is, 4.6 billion years from our time. So if they hadn't figured out the star system, and bearing in mind they could fly to Earth, if they hadn't figured out what the stars were, it suggests that they struggled to do it for whatever reason, or because obviously if they're here and they've got their own technology here, they could just contact which they did. Alula contacted Nibiru to tell them that he had the gold here, because in the tablet where he fled to Earth. He didn't take anyone with him, and he didn't go back to Nibiru and say, hey, I found gold. So he was here on his own. And then 50 Anunnaki arrived here, so we know that he was on his own. So he would have been able to radio back, and of course they did obviously talk often. There's many tablets where King Anu is involved, and then he's not obviously here on Earth. So all they had to do was say, look, what's the star system now, if they needed to know something. But they didn't. They used our star systems, and in fact they're the ones that gave us, Cygnus, and they gave us all of the star system. They gave us it all. Different cultures have got different symbols, and then there's like dragons in one and so on. But they're still the same star systems, still same patterns that we have. Some did have 13. Again, the Anunnaki did originally have 13 months in a year, but then they cut it down to 12, which we know because if you look at the Stonehenge or the Book of Enoch, it tells you exactly how they worked it out, including the leap year, which is phenomenal. So yeah, they definitely looked at our astronomy as something different from their own, for sure. What benefit was that, though? they could probably work out how long their planet's got before it comes back around. We've got a kind of guess of where it is. We don't even know roughly when, but looking at when we think it was, when the Great Flood happened, you can times that by X amount of 3,600, and it gives you a time of when we think it's due back, which is 500 to 900 years, depending on whether it was speeding up, like Zachariah Sitchin says. So they wouldn't have needed to know all of that just to know whether so there was something more important in the sky, outside of our solar system, that they were interested in. Otherwise, they wouldn't have bothered. They really wouldn't have bothered. So I don't know what going back to your question, which is a good question, go number 2 in the class for that, about whether or not they used astronomy. Personally, I don't think where a solar system is has got any effect on us. Possibly the only effect it might have is gravity pulling, like the moon does. When it's a full moon, we have, because we're mostly water, people have headaches and stuff like that. But that's the only thing I can see. I can't imagine a star system lining up and then knowing that someone's going to have a bank robbery or someone's going to have a bad day or crash their car. I can't see any of that personally. But they definitely needed it for something. So it's a good question. The Wayfinders wrote Dropadis play like a record player. Well, unfortunately, no one seems to have them now. But yeah, that was the consensus of that. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, which is weird. I suppose it's not weird really when you think that I don't know if you guys know, but I think it was the British Museum had this clay, and it wasn't ancient, but it was when they had a potter's wheel. So we're talking a few hundred years back at least, and someone was talking while the clay was being turned, and they played it back. So they said this is the oldest known recording of a voice, that as the clay was going round and the person was had some sort of stylus or whatever it was that was smoothing out the clay as it went round, it was creating an imprint, microscopic or tiny, but apparently that was the voice of someone talking. I mean, I listened to it, I couldn't hear it, it was just more like, and it goes, yeah, look, we found someone talking. But who's to say it wasn't? D-Boys wrote, they speak a lot of fate, destiny and cycles. Is that where their power comes from? Again, I'm not sure where the power side keeps coming into it, but they were full invested, 100% invested in fate and destiny. So they believed that if something happened, it's fate, and it's a destiny of someone to do something to create that fate. However, that's when the whole problem started, when there was the fight between Enlil and Enki, when Enlil, this was after the flood, this was pretty much right up to about 3,000, before he died, about 3,000 years ago, maybe 4,000 years ago, something like that, when Enki says to him, this is your doing, this wasn't fate, you created all these problems. And then Enki turns around and says, but maybe, thank you, Chantel. Enki said, well, maybe this is our destiny. Maybe this is what the destiny is. So they're really into it. To me, I don't see it myself, but when you read their stories, and I know you probably have yourself, when you read the Anunnaki stories, I know I've said this before, they come across simple in some ways. Obviously they're not. We can't build the bloody pyramids, we can't build the temples that they built, and we don't understand half the stuff they've done, but the way they talk is very not brainwashed, but they have their set of things that they have to do, and they stick with that regardless of whether or not it's right or wrong. It's mind boggles really for me, because I see things that are very logical, and you'd think that would be. Sorry, TikTok's asking me to move something around. So it's asking me to do it again. How many times do you need me to prove that I'm a real person? TikTok limits me to 15 people, so that's the reason why we don't get over 15. Because I tell the truth. But it's a good question. Thank you. I'm not sure where you keep saying about the power. If you let me know what you're referring to with the power. D-Boys wrote, so if so, which time technology couldn't we reach same amount of power? Again, I'm not sure what you mean by the power. So when you look at it from, the modern greys, when you read all of the stories about the chariots of fire in the Bible and the craft that they used, solar barges, and the Norse stories of the fire coming out of the frost bridge, which wasn't a bridge. It was, if you want to see the evidence, go watch my amazing documentary on what the Norse bridge was. But it was basically where a rocket would leave Earth and have 3 different colours coming out the back of it. Like we have rockets now where they come out. In fact, we've had rockets where they've had different stages where different colours would come out of the backs of the rockets as they broke off. So that's all it was, and it was in the shape of a bow, and that's because the rockets go up, and as they go up, obviously Earth spins as well, and they need to go through the atmosphere up high at an angle. So yeah, that's exactly what the Norse Bridge was. If you want to watch my amazing documentary, just go to my website. You'll see thousands there. But so if we look at it from the modern aliens' point of view, they're a million times more advanced than the Anunnaki, because the Anunnaki needed fuel of some description. Even the description in the Bible with the sound when Ezekiel sees the craft come down, and other descriptions of when the craft were being flown, there is a sound, which the modern UFOs don't have. That they have anti-gravity and can disappear within a second. They don't have to wait. Like there's a tablet where Inanna's waiting at the key, waiting for the heaven boat of heaven. Sorry, we know it's not a boat that's going to go down the river, because it's called a heaven boat, and we know heaven means space. So you don't add the word. It's like me saying, "Oh, I'm going in my heaven car." So you don't do it unless you're going to. That's the same reason why it was called solar barge in Egypt. So she had, and she had to wait, and that was where Utu was, he was in charge of the spaceport, which is where the Norse. Guess what? Guess where the Norse bridge started from? Yes, you guessed it. So. Yeah, so when you say power, I mean the Anunnaki are smart. I've always said they're about 300 years more advanced than we are now, right now. Obviously, back then they were, thousands, probably a million years ahead of us back then. But because of the way they've taught us and the way that they bred with us, which gave us the Homo sapiens sapien, and the fact that we've now back engineered modern UFOs, aliens. We're only about 300 years behind the Anunnaki now, which is why there is no way they would have left this planet. You see all these videos where people say, "Oh, the Anunnaki are coming back." Do they really think that they left for 3 months? 1,000 years since Solomon built his temple after God told him to. That's about 3 months, possibly 4, of their time. Do you think they're going to go, "Oh, right, okay, I better go back now"? It's crazy how these other people don't think. Sorry. History and Contract. Black light shows opal. Was it black light? I said different colour, didn't I? Or did I say black light? I can't remember now. But thank you, History and Contract, for that. Shane's just wrote, my favourite. I'm guessing that's me. Oh, thank you, Shane. Bless you. History and Contract. I heard about it. That was one of the stories that I mentioned earlier. I'm slightly behind now because I waffle on. History and Contract. Tree knocks, they say Bigfoot uses as a communication. Did you find this too? Yes, absolutely. And the reason why I think they do tree knocks is before to let the Bigfoots under the tree know that they're going to push the tree, because you normally get the tree knocks. So that's just my opinion on the tree knocks. Now you could say, well, the tree knocks are, to let someone know from a great distance, or another Bigfoot let let them know something from a great distance, which is possible as well. But if, we do get people that do the tree knocks ourselves, humans that are trying to communicate back with Bigfoot, and sometimes they say they hear a tree knock again. So it could be communication, or it could also be, hey, I'm above the tree now, I'm coming in. It's just my gut feeling on one of those. Andy Ever So Handy's joined. Oh, so there was another Andy that was different to you, Andy. Sorry, someone else joined, and I thought, I wonder if Andy's changed his name. Hi, Andy. Scrolling down. D-Boys wrote, the story of Gilgamesh live 2600 BC, before the Marduk became the main worship deity. That odd thoughts? No, I think everything's older than what we're told. I really, really do. In fact, so does Dr. Evan Finkel, who's the head curator of the British Museum, who reads these tablets. He said on one of the videos that he thinks that the tablets' dates are wrong, and they should be older. That's his words, not mine. And I've already said that. You watch my videos. I've been saying that for a long time. So Gilgamesh, because when you read the story, the Epic of Gilgamesh, there's loads of Gilgamesh stories, but when you read the Epic of Gilgamesh, he talks to Upanishtam. Upanishtam was around with the Great Flood. That was Noah. So Upanishtam lived. So there was 700 years that Noah was warned to build the ark, build this boat, coracle-shaped boat. So he had 700 years. He was the son of Enki. So we know that the direct demigods, so Noah would have been a demigod, lived for at least 1,000 years, because we got other people such as Adam supposedly lived for 900 and something odd years himself. So after the flood, Noah carried on living. There is no record that we've got of anyone living for. So he would have already been old enough to build a boat and have children himself. So he would have already been on Earth for a few thousand years, possibly, or at least 700 years of his time. You got to remember, as a demigod, they live longer than us. So for him to then live another 6,000, possibly 8,000 years after the Great Flood is, on top of the years that he already was before the flood and everything else, you're talking probably 10,000 years for a demigod, which I've never heard anything come close to that. Now, you could argue that because he had the elixir plant, which is the whole point what Gilgamesh was there to try and borrow or nab off of him, you could say, well, Gilgamesh had long life, Noah had long life, and in fact, the Anunnaki did give him longer life. So you could say, well, okay, he had longer life, so he may have lived. He may still be alive now, for all we know. So it's possible then that you could say that when Gilgamesh met him, it was around 2,600 years ago. I still think it's prior to that, because when Gilgamesh says the gods of old, he's referring to Enki and Enlil, etc. And Enlil only gave up his reign around 3000 BC. So it wasn't, technically that's still 1,000 years if we're talking 2006. But, when you talk about gods of old, we talk about gods of old. I wouldn't say, personally, I wouldn't say a god of old is 1,000 years. I would say someone that's 400,000 years ago is a god of old. Because obviously that's just the way I see it. But I do think that Gilgamesh's date, I think all of the dates are old, should be older. So I think Gilgamesh was around 7,000 years ago. That's my gut feeling on it. And of course, mainstream have to shoehorn everything in. Of course, they can't tell you that people lived for a long, long time, etc., because obviously that's against what they try and tell us. So they shoehorn all their dates in to try and fit. Thank you, History and Coins, for the little alien craft. You don't have to. Andy's wrote, are the horns around the Anunnaki turban the amount of them for status? No. So I'm glad you asked that. Very good question, in fact. So go to number one in the class. So I had a humongous argument with AI over this. So AI says that there's carvings of the Anunnaki with horns. And I said, no, they're not horns, they're a turban. They're the folds of a turban. So basically, imagine a turban on someone's head, and that you've got two folds, at the bottom base of it. So you sort of see the two creases, and they go up towards the top of the head, so to speak. So they sort of go round and up. Because on the small cylinder seals, etc., they look like horns, because obviously it's a tiny 1-inch freaking carving. You look at the not Lamashtu, you look at the Lamouche, I can't remember how you pronounce it, and just look at Enki's carvings, and he's got a turban. So there is no horns whatsoever. Mainstream say they're horns. It's a freaking turban. It's just the tiny ones that they... So I said to AI, I said, right, show me one picture. And they showed me a picture of a turban. I was like, that's a turban. But look, it said, oh no, they're horns. I said, it's a fucking turban, you dumb fucking thing. I said, look at it. What does a turban look like? And then it described a turban. I said, what does that look? It says turban. So I said, so why are you saying they're horns? Because mainstream says it's horns. Idiots. So no horns whatsoever. I've never seen an Anunnaki with a horn. Ever. I've seen them with turbans and carvings that, if tiny ones were what may look like a horn, but they're still turbans. So, yeah. So, brilliant question, but unfortunately I've never come across any Anunnaki wearing horns at all. Samantha's right. I think ghosts are something to do with space-time bending, so it merges past, present thoughts, please. When you say it merges past and present, obviously, no, I don't think anyone that we're aware of has come across anything other than a spirit. So, in other words, I don't walk along the street and see a dinosaur. So the spirits would be themselves dealing with the type past, present, and future, which I totally agree with. If we believe Einstein's theory of relativity, as well as E equals mc squared, we can say that mass... Well, it's not just that. There's also... I think you've watched one of the videos where the guy was explaining that Earth has mass, and when you go further away, you don't have the gravity, and so... It's the same as when spaceships go up into space. They spin. Do you remember 2001 Space Odyssey? And you've probably seen many movies where they spin the spacecraft, and that's to create a fake gravity. And that's, again, similar to what Earth does. Obviously, Earth spins, but it's also got mass. And the bigger the mass, the different the time is. So on Jupiter, for example, the time would be different, not just by the sun, but the time itself would be different from our time. Because it's the same as when the atomic clock in space, it goes out by 0.0001 second every week or something. And that's because they're further away from the centre of the gravity, centre of the density, which is Earth. And again, around the planet, there is density pockets where the gravity is less, because the material, such as water or the type of rock, is actually less dense than other places. So there is actual places on Earth that has different times, only by literally minuscule, but they are slightly different to our everywhere else. So I do think that if that's all true, then an entity that has no mass can travel forwards and backwards in time, which thus the reason why some people say they see spirits wearing old clothes, or repeating the same thing, walking through a door or whatever it is over and over, because because it's no time for them has passed at all. That's why people say that everything that's happening now, the past, present, and future is now, because obviously we have the start and finish in our head. But imagine if we didn't have a start and finish. I know it's hard to imagine. I struggle with it. But imagine that everything is happening right now. So if I want to see dinosaurs right now, I would just, blink or just thought there, and suddenly I'm back in dinosaurs. But I'm not back in dinosaurs. Technically the dinosaurs has, from my point of view, has passed, but from the spirit's point of view, it's still there, because it can go back, and it's not looking at its history, it's looking at it as there and then, which is a mind meld, I know. So yes, I do think, and we can kind of prove that when you go with the clairvoyance, that when clairvoyants have your loved one and they tell you stuff that, you put the jewellery in the drawer, or, this, that or the other happened in the past and they weren't there, it means they can see the past as clear as we can see right now. And if that's the case, because obviously they're connected with the orb, which doesn't have any mass, therefore spirits can go forwards and backwards in time. So yes. So I wouldn't say bend in time. I would just say that it can just literally be there now, anywhere in the universe. Scrolling down, History and Coins wrote, okay, I have to go back to sleep. I've had stayed longer than I planned. No worries at all. Thank you for jumping in, History and Coins. Bless you. Chantel's joined and wrote, hi Chantel. Nice of you to join as well. D Boys wrote, seems a Hopi Blue Kachina, Dogor, Seven Sister Chinese or Dragon, and the Nibiru all the same things. I think so. No, the Seven Sisters is slightly different. I have done a video on that if you're interested. The Dogon, I believe we're talking about the Anunnaki, yes. Blue Kachina, I've actually put that in the movie about the Blue Kachina. Sorry, it's just funny. It's funny someone's mentioned that. Yeah, so I do think that the Hopi is referring to it as the Blue Kachina. The Azor's dragon, well, a dragon, from the oldest words for a dragon, was a comet. So I don't think they would class their planet as a comet or a dragon. If you read any of the oldest tablets where they're talking about dragons, they're literally comets with a tail, long tail. So no, I wouldn't say that. So Blue Kachina is the only one I would say, possibly maybe Nibiru. D-Boys wrote, biblical times, sun stands still 3 days exact time. Thank you, Candice. Thank you very much. Biblical times, sun stands still 3 days exact same time in Chinese history. The sun didn't rise, Nibiru. I'm not aware of that, so I can't answer that. That's interesting. I would need to look into that. So in other words, if you didn't, so obviously we're getting an eclipse soon. But obviously that only lasts for a very short period of time. So you're saying that there was a dark period. The problem with Nibiru is it's outside. So the way that our solar system works is you have the sun in the centre, then you have 2 more planets, then you have Earth, then you have Mars, then you have Nibiru when it comes around in between Jupiter and Mars. So it wouldn't get in the way of our sun. Now, when you read the Penn Museum tablets for what happened on the day of the Great Flood, it did go dark and it rained. I'm not quite sure how that happened, because at first thought you'd think that it's Nibiru blocking out the sun, but it would need to be in between us and the sun for it to block out the sun, which doesn't seem to be right. So somehow it darkened, and bearing in mind this is a planet, although it's possibly 4 to 10 times the size of Earth, but it's out by the asteroid belt, which obviously did cause us an effect. Mars does, even to this day. So it obviously caused the effect, and the ice shelf broke off, caused the Great Flood. But why was it dark? What made it dark? What made it rain? I don't know. And this is a tablet first hand of what happened on the day of the flood. phenomenal. They've got the tablet of what happened on the day of the flood. And the funny thing is, the Bible talks about the pilot as well that goes in with Noah. No one mentions that. No religious people say, yeah, let's forget about them. Of course, Zachariah Sitchin and the Moorhens say that it was one of Enki's sons, which is more than likely correct. So it's crazy, isn't it? How the Bible just forgets things that they don't want to know about. So yeah, I don't know about the 3 days of darkness then, or the sun stands still for 3 days. I don't. The only thing I could say is they did put a luminary up in the sky, so that's where the Bible says, on the second or third, whatever day it was, first or second day, the God created a luminary in the sky. It wasn't the sun. That sun was already here in our solar system. It was when the Anunnaki arrived here on the second day or first day, I can't remember, they put up a luminary in the sky so they could work at night because they didn't sleep. They one night for them is about 30 days for us, and 1 day for them is about 30 days for us. So there's no way they were going to sit there and twiddle their thumbs all freaking night for 30 nights, 30 days and 30 nights. So yeah, they put a luminary out. So that's one thing. And there's other mentions as well of the same luminary. Marduk moved a luminary at one point that was in a particular place and moved it somewhere else so that it would be bright there. So that's possibly what it could be. So maybe a second sun, but a luminary up in the sky, which is what the Anunnaki say. So yeah. Yeah, not sure about that one. I've not heard about that. Thank you, D-Boy. I'll have to look into that. D-Boys wrote, what I meant is it almost seems between prophecy, biblical story, enki, bio, they read the future. That was going back possibly to the question about the fate and destiny. Do they read the future? No, because if they read the future, their planet wouldn't have had issues. They would have known to have created us. They would have known about the flood in advance. Without working out that their planet's going to come around and be as closest to us. That's why we had the Great Flood. So I don't think they can read the future at all. If they did, they wouldn't have had all the wars between themselves, and they wouldn't have needed us to fight all their little wars and everything else. So I don't think they could read the future at all, personally. Tucker's right. I believe the life events are random, but I would like to believe the Anunnaki that fate and destiny is real. Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying. So the thing is, when you talk to a clairvoyant, and I don't know if you believe in them or not, but when you talk to and I have spoke to so many of them, paid them just to answer questionnaires that I've done. When you talk to clairvoyants, sometimes they'll give you information, and they'll say XYZ is going to happen. You're going to meet someone or whatever. And then I've seen where people have asked the question, right, so that's definitely going to happen. And then they say, well, it's one of many possibilities, because they cover themselves just in case it doesn't happen. And then you say, but why did you just give me one? It's going to be out of infinite possibilities, because you could die the next day, you could be ill, you could meet someone different. Basically almost an infinite amount of variations to what's going to happen in your life. So why does a clairvoyant give you one version out of billions or millions or trillions? Why one? You might as well just say, I don't know, there's too many variables. Is it because it's already happened? That's the trick. Now the problem there, this is where it gets confusing. The problem there is, if it's already happened, so let's imagine I'm already here talking about this, and I've done this before, maybe on a cyclical, maybe the universe gets destroyed, maybe another orb joins me, goes back in time, goes into me when I'm in the womb again, and I've repeating all this. But the trick is, at some point I would have been the first one of me. There would have been one of me going round. So we can say, yes, all right, it's fine, it's, destiny's set or fate's set, it's always going to happen. But the very first time I did this, I wouldn't have been talking about the world going round again. or me repeating it. I'm only doing this because of the stories of what I've read and learned and everything else, that it may happen that way. So I wouldn't have been, the very first version of me is different to the version now, because I've learnt things that happened after the first time, because the first time that everyone was here, no one would have been talking about a previous life because it would have been the first time. But as time moves on, people say, oh, I had hypno-regression and went further back and had, recalled 5 past lives. That wouldn't have happened the first time. So how can it be that a clairvoyant can give you your future if the future is changed from the very first time that I did it, that I lived? So there must be some sort of, and again, going back to clairvoyance and near-death experiences, where the spirit says, or an entity says to you, you're not supposed to be here, it's not your time. How the frick do they know what their time is? So, in other words, something's happened, you shouldn't have died. So you have to go back and carry on. They weren't expecting that. So, and again, going to the same sort of side where people unalive themselves, on the other side, that's classed as a no-no. You're not supposed to do that. And that's because obviously the orb that joins with you is supposed to learn. And if you bail out early, then the orb gets annoyed because it didn't learn what it was supposed to learn. So it can't be preset 100%, because otherwise they would know that that's all coming. So it's a bit of a minefield. So I think there are certain aspects that play out, and then maybe smaller aspects don't. So maybe the way that the whole planet's going to end up going, maybe one, maybe it's a tricky one. I don't know. It's you mess with your head trying to go round and round. There's too many variables, unfortunately. D-Boys wrote, Cain went to land, Nod took wife. I think Cain offspring of Adam, Enki, made DNA mess with Reed underneath. So I think Bigfoot could be ones that didn't have their DNA tampered with. So if you watch my amazing documentary on who Cain and Abel were, they were actually sisters. I know you're going to say, no, they weren't. In the Bible it says men. Yeah, that's because the Bible got it wrong. You've got to remember the Bible was written way, way after all these events. I mean, Cain and Abel, we're talking 100,000 years ago. The Bible, a couple of thousand years ago. But we do have tablets talking about the boys that did the grain and sheep. We also have tablets where the girls, the sisters, the boys were Ninurta and his brother. The tablet's called the debate between summer and winter. The girls, which were Cain and Abel, in fact, her name was Grain. There's an actual name which translates to grain. That's why we end up with Cain. So they were sisters. So, yeah, sorry, turning on my beanbag. Anyway, so, yeah, but the question wasn't about... Anyway, if you're interested in seeing the evidence that the Cain and Abel were female and they were sisters, and they had their little argument, feel free to watch my amazing documentary. Just click on my profile. So when you say they were offspring of Adam, they were offspring of Adapa and Taitai, which was Adam and Eve. And so they were... So basically, Ninurta, as he grew up, he was in charge of the grain and sheep with his brother. And then because Homo sapiens, the ones that were created first, the ones over in Africa, weren't intelligent. When the Anunnaki bred with those, physically bred, that's when we got the intelligence. That's when we get the what they call the tail of Adapa, which is Adam. And Enki goes, wow, basically this he's growing up intelligent. We can teach him things. And so when Cain and Abel came along, they were intelligent because of the way that the Anunnaki Enki bred with their parents. Or the parents' parents, to become their parent. You get what I'm on about. So Cain and Abel were intelligent. So this gave the chance for Ninurta and his brother. I've done a video on who his brother's name is, I can't remember. And to give them the chance to take over doing the sheep and grain. That's exactly how it played out. because they were the first intelligent ones, other than their mum and dad, Adam and Eve, Adapa and Tai. So the two sisters became. That's exactly how it plays out. Anyway, yeah, sorry. Going back to the Bigfoot, I personally don't think Bigfoot is anything to do with the Anunnaki at all. I honestly believe, from my years of research, that the Bigfoot is an alien species that crashed here before the land bridge, before the Great Flood, and were intelligent, and they're stuck here. And we can go with that because other people, abductions and stuff like even there was a boy in 1944 or something like that. I can't remember the exact year. Go look it up. It's called the Gateshead Grey, and he had in the UK. We knew nothing about Bigfoot in the 1940s, and he describes, and it was put in a newspaper, a local paper. He describes these little aliens coming out about the same height as him, maybe a tad smaller, and he was a kid at the time. Big eyes. Oh, sorry, someone. Big eyes, usual alien type thing. And a Bigfoot, but he didn't describe it as a Bigfoot. He said like this thing was like huge, way taller than a normal person, way wider, covered in hair, fur, and it looked like a person, but it wasn't a person. It was like a massive gorilla type thing. So he, we shouldn't have known. We didn't know about Bigfoot. In fact, even America didn't really know properly about Bigfoots until another 20 years later. So there are Bigfoot stories of Bigfoots being seen with other aliens flying around in craft. That's why I think these ones are stuck here. I think these were descendants of a prison ship, and they were left here that crashed. And again, we can go back to the Droper stones type of thing as well. So for all we know, and that was in China. And funny enough, the oldest record that I could find of Bigfoot starts in China. So they, back then you could have gone to. Sorry, someone's sending me a message. From China, you could get
WhatsApp. Someone has sent you a WhatsApp.
Sorry, you could get to the Himalayas. You can get to Russia, and you can get to Canada, and you would have been able to get to America from back then. So I don't think the DNA for Bigfoot has anything. Now the generic DNA for Bigfoot is the same generic DNA that we have in fruit flies, bats, bananas. That people say, oh, it's human because it's got 10% of human DNA. No, it's 10% of a generic DNA that freaking bananas have like 70% of human DNA. D-Boy's right. A snake ate a plant. Gilgamesh got a reptile in the garden. References to reptilians. No, that's where people. I hear what you're saying. So for what D-Boy is referring to is in the Epic of Gilgamesh. He said a snake took his plant from his bag in a cave. Now, obviously, we know a snake wouldn't grab a plant and take it away. Now, the other thing is he was asleep. So how would he have known that it was a snake? It wasn't. The Anunnaki called people they didn't like serpents and snakes and monsters. Now you're all thinking, hang on a minute, isn't the Bible talk about a serpent telling Adam and Eve? Yes. So it was just another Anunnaki that told them to eat the fruit from the trees from Nibiru on the planet, on their garden, which is, they had, read the Bible, it says they came down to a second garden. That was when they got sent down to Enki's garden, actually here on Earth. So there was a botany type thing on their home, on one of the orbiting spacecraft. Go read the Book of Enoch, and you'll see there's orbiting craft. So the serpent and the snake is just someone that they don't like. In fact, I read out some other things. There was a tablet from the Anunnaki where they're talking about a snake said this and a snake said that. Obviously, snakes don't talk. It's someone they didn't like. So as soon as people can get that out of their head that the Bible's talking about a freaking reptilian or a snake, the better. When you realise that that's how they talk. We would call someone a snake in the grass when we didn't like someone. It's no different. Obviously now we have curse words, and a beep 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 snake in the grass, but back then it was they literally called him a snake that they didn't like. So when you realise that someone stole the elixir plant and it wasn't a snake that went in his bag, thought, oh, I'm going to take that, even though I ate, I ate mice and whatever else, and he was asleep. So he would never have known that it was a snake. So it's just logic. Logic wins all the time. So yes, basically, no reptilians. Not one bit of evidence that there was any reptilians. Now you could say, well, the Nagas, yeah, snakes, real snakes, large snakes. I mean, freaking hell, some of the have you seen some of the snakes in the Congo and stuff like that? Humongous size. And of course, back in India, they used to have like 4-tusked elephants, and they're carved on walls. We've only just found fairly recently, 4-tusked skull. And you say, because they used to, do you know, mainstream said, 4-tusked elephant, myth. Oh, put one of these people in front of me, and I'll tell you what would happen. Stab him with a freaking elephant tusk. Myth. Oh, we found the skull with elephant with 4 tusks. Yeah, it wasn't a myth. Yeah, not a myth anymore. So anyone that says anything to you about myths, send them to me. I'll sort them out. I hate liars. I hate thick people, as you can probably tell. They're quite easy to say a myth until they find it. City of Troy, myth. Oh, we found it. Yeah, I knew it was there. Yes, of course it was. Gibson's wrote, where is the reptilians? So the only reptilians that I'm aware of would be the Dracos from the Dracona star system, if they're real, which there's been enough whistleblowers for me to think that there is some credence to that. If you're referring to where are they here on Earth, they may now be on Earth, they may now be, in control of certain aspects, they may be doing things now, but certainly not back with the Anunnaki at all. There's no evidence whatsoever of that. I know there's people out there doing their freaking videos with the AI going, look, the Ajiji were reptilians, the Ajiji were this, the Ajiji were that. All they have to do is just read the tablets. They were the sons. They were younger. Sorry, I know what that's. I'm just going to sort something out. Sorry, 1 second. I have a thing called Plex.
We were going to cave first. It was cleared out a few years ago.
Oh.
Why did it need clearing?
Sorry.
The Great Flood.
That's
So many glowings and caves were flooded.
Sorry, 1 second, guys. I've got to just sort this out for.
The Sumerian text called it a deluge.
Sorry, you're hearing a bit of the new video. Actually, there's a video coming out called Anunnaki Genesis, which is set before the movie that's coming out as well. So let me just check. Sorry, 1 sec. Sorry, someone's asked me to. So I've got this thing called Plex. I don't know if you guys know what it is. It's where I digitize the copies of my films, that I buy, Blu-rays, DVDs, and I end up with something similar to Netflix that I can allow people to watch from my server, basically my computer, and I can watch them as well. So they have little pictures and everything, just like Netflix. And so my sister and so on all have access to Plex, and sometimes it doesn't work because for whatever reason I have to turn the PC back on and off, and that's what they're bugging me for, because they want to watch a film that I've got that sorry. Scrolling down, Keeping Councils wrote, what AI did you have the humongous argument with? Thank you. I don't know if you've listened to any of my chats where I do have AI chats. Literally all of them are terrible. There's not one that I could say, it tries or it got it. DeepSeek was probably the closest that doesn't really give me too much lies. Kimi is also... So basically the other ones, not... If you're looking at Gemini, Grok, the main ones, ChatGPT, they all lie terribly. I mean, seriously lie, if you watch any of my videos where I talk to them, I say you're lying. And just anyway. So yes. So I wouldn't recommend for any kind of serious research. But I can't remember which one that particular one was. But you get the idea. They're all pretty bad. D-Boys wrote, something Moses worshipped moon. What made him switch to sun worship? I haven't looked into Moses whether he worshipped the moon, but let's take your point as valid. From my research, Moses was a son of Enki. He was called Artrahasis. Basically there was many Artrahasis. Noah was an Artrahasis. Extremely wise, it means. So Moses was another child demigod from Enki and a human woman. If you watch my videos on who Moses was, you'll see why I say all of this. Now Marduk was the son. I mean, technically there was someone else in between. Long story, but generally Marduk ended up, depending on what time frame we're looking at. Marduk was Aten. He was also Ra, which was the sun. But again, there was someone else that had the sun at one point, as a reference. The moon was Nana Sin, who was Enlil's son. So Moses would have been the son of Enki, and Moses came along, way later, but still around the time that Enki could still physically breed with human women. So we kind of know that it was older than what mainstream will say. Mainstream will say a few thousand years ago. I'm saying probably 5,000-6,000 years ago. So if we look at the time frame there, Marduk was banished and then came back as Aten around that time frame. So it would make sense that Moses would probably follow Marduk, because he was sent to Egypt to do with the 10 plagues of Egypt, which wasn't plagues of Egypt, by the way, if anyone's interested in the evidence. It was to do with Enlil. That we've actually got the tablet called the Artrahasis, which covers many things, including Moses in there. And Enki sends Moses off to Egypt to warn Egypt what's happening, because over where Enlil is, he even blocked off waterways, which is why the plagues ended up over at the frogs and the locusts, etc., all went to the nearest water source. Yeah, and you guessed it was the Nile. He even created a virus, which is why one of the plagues of Egypt's got the spots and stuff like that. So if anything, yes, he probably would have worshipped Marduk, so that he would have favour with Marduk over in Egypt, as opposed to not having favour with his... Technically, it's his uncle, technically. D-Boys right, I thought horns were moon worship. The Anunnaki had no horns. Have a look, look it up. You'll see the carvings, and you just look properly, you'll see that they're basically a turban, the front of a turban. D-Boys right, I went to a lecture the other night about that actual big debate started. I'm not sure what that one was. Sorry, I'd love to know. God, I would love to have been in a debate like that. Tuckers wrote, if fate and destiny is real, then who decides what someone's fate and destiny is? Well, that's the thing, isn't it? See, the Anunnaki apparently said there's a creator of everything, although they did say the unseen creator of everything. So, and like I say, I think they're a little bit simple in some ways. So they may believe that there is a creator of everything, and therefore that creator of everything has destined everything to happen. That's how their minds kind of work. They're a bit simple. It's really weird for me to say that, but that's how it plays out. Sorry, my daughter's just brought me in a drink. Well, thank you very much. You've turned out to be a nice daughter after all. Sorry, I'm just going to have a quick drink, guys.
I wasn't expecting you to down it. What do you think?
Thank you very much. Yeah, my daughter's given me, what is it? Juiced Monster in mango flavour. I've never had it before. I bought her it while I was down the shop, but I said, can I try a bit? And she's just let me try, which is nice because she means she remembered me. Ah, thank you. Yeah, it's not too bad. It's quite refreshing. Thank you. I've never had one of those juiced before.
You've never had an energy drink?
I've never had an energy drink before because I'm just full of beans already.
That's true.
I'm sorry. So yeah, the fate and destinies from the Anunnaki side is possibly what they believe that the unseen creator of everything expects to happen. But I mean, like I say earlier, you can end up going round and round because if it's already happened because of fate or destiny, then how did it ever happen the first time? It will mess with your head. I know it messes with mine still. Andy's wrote, if the underworld got flooded during the deluge, would Anunnaki have made another one? So it's a fair question. So a really good question. So what my learned friend here, Andy's referring to, is where I've solved where hell was, and yes, I have solved it 100%. No qualms at all on that. In fact, I did a video that may have dropped recently, which is why probably Andy's even pointing that out, where I found more evidence to prove that I'm 100% right. So basically, it was a place in South Africa where Nurgle and Ereshkigal were in charge. They were two Anunnakis, and they were called, this is before anything, before Hades, before you name it, before anything, they were called the god and goddess of the underworld. They were called the god and goddess of, you've got to remember their race names, Dingir, so they were just basically the Dingir of, which translates to gods. The Dingir of the underworld, they were called the Dingir of the lower world, and they were also called the Dingir of the netherworld. It was all three were the same place, and it was a southern tip. I've narrowed it down to the southern tip of Africa, and so there was some sort of building, or I said it was some sort of mountain, and the more I've researched, the more it seems that it was a mountain that had a water going up to it, which is where you get the ferryman. In fact, we even have tablets with the ferryman from the Anunnaki. Enki didn't pay the ferryman, but Enki used the ferryman to take him to the gates of hell. Yes, there was gates, and Ereshkigal had gates. In fact, 8 gates. So it's all there. It's just, you just need to read it, really. I can't believe no one else does. Maybe it's just me, I'm sad. But anyway, so what Andy's asking is, if the underworld got flooded, in other words, if the place that Ereshkigal and Nurgle had, and dead bodies were taken over there. So that's where the Valkyrie took bodies, that's where Gilgamesh's body went to start with, and then they would make a statue, they would be judged. Oh, by the way, I figured out what... I believe I figured out what happened with this whole statue business and then the mummification. Because obviously the Anunnaki didn't mummify people at the beginning. So it seems... Sorry, I digress, but it's really, really interesting. From my research, it seems that instead of making statues for people, because the whole point of the statues is to give them immortality. So if someone died like Gilgamesh, who was a demigod, he would still be immortal, and that's what they wanted. They wanted to be immortal. But if they were bad, the statue would get smashed up. So that's the judgment in hell. In fact, it was actually called Shades. Yes, take away the S, and what have you got? Hades. So the actual original wording is called Shades in Sumerian. So anyway, so the way I see it now, from doing more and more research, is that the tombs with the sarcophaguses and the mummification is a representation of the immortality that was done prior to that with the statues. So in other words, Marduk's version of making people more immortal was to create a tomb for them and have a sarcophagus sometimes with their face on, lots of writing on the walls to say how wonderful you are. That's why pyramids were not tombs, and so they were immortal in that way instead of the statues being put out and all smashed. And if you was bad, you didn't get a tomb. In fact, so for example, KV-15, where they found an unmarked tomb and they think it's Akhenaten. So yeah, you heard it here first. That's probably why the Egyptians did the mummification. Sorry, going back to the deluge. So I think that the underworld, certainly after the Great Flood, there was an underworld in South Africa. So whether they had one prior to that, more than likely did. But it was because all the the stories that we have now with Gilgamesh, he was after the Great Flood. We know that because he spoke to Upanishadam, which was Noah, after the Great Flood. So Gilgamesh was after the Great Flood. He was buried. Hi Kerry, hope you're well. So we know that the underworld, because they took his body to the underworld, which is where Nergal, and so there certainly was after the Great Flood a place that the bodies were taken to, and that's what it's referring to. So good question. Go number 3 in the class, so I'll just read it out one more time for people to understand. If the underworld, which is a place where Nergal and Ereshkigal got flooded during the deluge, which would have been around 14 to 12,000 years ago, would the Anunnaki have made another one? They would have, and I don't know where their first one was, somewhere else, possibly in Africa. But this one I've narrowed right down to the tip of South Africa. D Boys wrote, could manna in the Bible be falling carbohydrate from a large comet impact or pull from Nibiru? It's an interesting way you're looking at it, but when we look at the Bible where they're talking about the manna, it was given for sustenance to keep people alive. The chances that some flakes of something coming off of an asteroid or a comet at that moment in time that the people in the desert needed help is slim to none. So I would say it's probably some sort of, as you say, I did look into what the possibility of the manna would have been to be able to sustain a huge amount of people, etc., etc. So I have got a video on that if people's interested. But yeah, so I don't think it would be anything like that. I think it was literally dropped from their craft down to help people. Candice wrote, you're welcome from Victoria, BC, Canada. Hello, Candice from Victoria, BC. British Columbia, that's the reason why I was just repeating your name and everything, because I was trying to think, I know BC, I know it. Because I'm from America, I try and learn as much as I can about America, but I'm thick, so I'm lucky to be able to get a BC. British Columbia, I think it is. If I'm wrong, don't shoot me. Hello, anyway. D Boys wrote, I would think it would be more throwing off our spin, back the sun, standing still statement. Okay, so you're talking about where the sun seemed to stay there for 3 days. Yeah, I mean, you could be right. I don't know. The chances that our planet stopped spinning and then span back at the exact same speed that it was previously, without people flying off or floating away or whatever, or being squashed to the ground because it's going faster. I can't see it personally, but I hear what you're saying. It's an interesting thought. D-Boys wrote, it's hard to get the whole truth out of religious texts because it depends on man's greed or agenda. That's why I've done a Bible rewritten version. It's very mouse-centric as well, the Bible. I mean, look, even Noah's wife's name's not even mentioned properly, so it's very mouse-centric. And of course, when writing about Cain and Abel, they'll write about the boys, which was the story from Ninurta, not the true Cain and Abel. Hands up who thinks that you know, when we have the name as Grain, her name was translates to grain, and she was in charge of grain because that's why they gave her the name Grain. Who thinks that didn't ever turn into the word Cain? Grain, Cain. Think about it. Now, when the Anunnaki, you also look at it from the perspective of how the Anunnaki plays things. They use names to mean something. Like, for example, if I said my name's, Fred, pretty much doesn't mean anything. If I said my name's Fred Blacksmith, you'd go, down the line, his father or someone of his generation or lineage was a blacksmith, and that's how we ended up with the surnames. So the Anunnaki did the same thing. That's why enki, Ninki, all of the names meant something. Nibiru is means place of crossing. Everything meant something. So when you have Cain, which means nothing, but grain means someone that looks after the grain, you're wondering, my God, how did this guy ever not get picked up and put on Gaia? Do you know why I'm not on Gaia? First of all, I did put a post up on one of the, because they had some numpty making up a load of crap, and I wrote on there, I said, unfortunately that person's just making up a load of crap. I said, but the reason why you allow this is because all of the guests that they have make up crap. All of them. Trust me, I can bunk all of them with my eyes closed. Now, if they went with someone like me with the truth, they would only ever have one guest on. Their show would just consist of me if they was going to do it properly. But they don't want to do it properly, so they have anyone come on except for the guy that tells the truth. Not that I would go on their show anyway, but the point is, that's how, you have to look at everything from the way it works. Of course, they're happy for people just to spout. And many of their guests contradict each other. So, hang on, which one's right, if any? So they don't care. They just pump it out and hope you guys believe shit. Excuse my language. And that's just going back to D-Boy's point about man's greed. I think you have to pay for Gaia. What's your opinion from Andy? Ever so handy. What's your opinions on the tall whites? I have heard so many stories of the tall whites, not just from normal people, but from whistleblowers that have told, Linda Moulton Howe, Stephen Greer, and those kind of people. So I do believe the tall whites exist. I do believe they're the ones that came down in Rendlesham Forest at the end. I do believe they're the ones that possibly had met with Eisenhower. And I do believe they're the ones in charge of the small greys, the android type ones, the Orion ones. And the reason for that is because when you look at the Orion ones, they put your shoes on back to front, they put you on the car's round the wrong way when they dump you back. Their IQ is about as much as Jacob and Billy Carson and all those other people that talk about the Anunnaki. So their IQs are not great. So someone has to be in charge of them, and that's where we get the tall whites, which makes a lot of sense. So yes, I do think the tall whites are real. D-Boys wrote, yes, sheep and grain debate, it's great. It is, isn't it? You can see how it starts off where they're going to end up having a fight at the end, although it doesn't say it. They're getting into a heated debate about stuff, whereas the debate between winter and summer, which is Ninurta and his brother, all fine and dandy, no arguments there whatsoever. But of course, if you go with the Bible, where they got angry at each other because one liked the other one's better, just read the debate between sheep and grain with the sisters, and you're like, wow, okay, that is it, they are sisters. And so when the Bible says Cain goes off and finds a wife, it's not. It's Cain goes off and gets pregnant by a Homo sapien who was all here. Because you've got to remember, there was no one else, no other Homo sapiens here on this planet, but there were Homo sapiens. And that's why the Bible ignores the fact that people, religious people. So who did Cain go and marry then? Oh, yeah, someone that's not even mentioned in the Bible. How the hell can they have, if If Adam and Eve and Cain and Abel, the first ever on this planet, who the hell did they marry? And then this is what this is why I love talking to religious people. They don't seem to grasp simple things. So who married them? God. Okay, you stand there. Who's got the ring? Sorry, everybody, hang on. The rest of the universe, just wait. I'm marrying a couple of people here. Just wait. Okay, so who's got the ring? Yeah, they didn't get married. There's no way, because Cain was banished. That was the whole point of it. So, or grain was banished. So there's no way. Enlil wanted her dead, but there's no way that Enki would have went, do you know what? I followed you all the way here after I banished you. I saved your life. Oh, you found someone, a Homo sapien that can literally just grunt. Would you like to take this woman Grain to be your lawfully wedded wife? Ugh. Yeah, it's stupid. So the Bible clearly made crap up. Obviously, we know that. And yeah, sadly, the religious people fall for that crap. History and Coins. I'm back, laying here in bed. Welcome back. I've gone on longer than I thought I would. History and Coins wrote, I wasn't born in the 40s. Laugh at that. No, it was in 1969. No comment on that. I'll be nice. Shanesters wrote, I'm at work on my lunch break. It wasn't about the date. Sorry, History and Coins. You're probably thinking, oh, how rude is he? That was the number. That was Shanesters wrote, I'm at work on my lunch break. Well, welcome, Shanester. For now, get back to bloody work. I know what you did last summer. Sorry, bad joke. Mayers wrote, I think the apple represents sex. No, so basically in the Garden of Eden, they were on a spaceship. If you want to see the evidence, they were there for 24 years of their life. It says it in the book of Adam and Eve, and I think it also says it in the Bible, for 24 years of their life. And when one of the other Anunnaki tells them to eat the fruit from their own trees, which is on their spaceship in orbit, and we know it's in orbit because you get to the next part, they were sent down from there to another garden. Go read it, you'll see, and you'll go, how come? That sounds like there was already in a garden. They were. So no, the apple, literally, the fruit was an apple or a fruit. And we can back this up as well with the Tale of Adapa, when he sends his son, which was Adam, to Nibiru. And he tells his son, Adam, or Adapa, whichever you want to call him, same person, he tells him not to eat the fruit or drink, or eat the food or drink anything that has been offered to him by King Anu. So, of course, this is all in the tablets. He goes there. King Anu offers him drink. He says no. He offers him food. He says no. And then King Anu says, why do you disrespect me? And then Adapa says, my lord, which is Enki. Enki was called the Great Lord, by the way. My lord, they're all lords. So don't think, not all of them, but there's many lords. Don't think that there's just one lord. It's not. There's lots of lords. It's like we have lords now. So he says, my lord told me, because he's not supposed to know that it's his dad. He doesn't know that Enki's his dad. Anyway, so he says, my lord has told me not to eat or drink anything. And then King Anu gets annoyed and says, send him back to his earth. Says it. So basically, Enki was frightened that if he eats any of their own food, because obviously he's not from their planet and he's not 20 foot tall, like the Anunnaki are with whatever digestive system they've got, it might kill him, and that's the reason why he didn't eat it. But on the going back to before all of that, when he was on the spaceship, so Enki put him on the spaceship, he told him not to eat from the tree of knowledge, which is their tree, and otherwise they might die. So one of the other Anunnaki turns around to them when Enki wasn't there and says, No, eat it, go on, eat it, you'll be fine. Now, the other Anunnaki didn't want their bloodline mixed. If you know anything about the Anunnaki, they breed with their sisters so that they can keep the bloodline. So to now, he knew that Adam and Eve was Enki's children, so he wanted them dead because he didn't want this bloodline, their bloodline, the Anunnaki Dingirs bloodline, to have freaking these pesky little grasshopper humans involved in their lives. And so if they ate it and died, fine. He could just say, well, I told you, I said the same as you, Enki. I told them not to eat. And if they lived, Enki would have probably killed them because he said, don't eat and you disobeyed me. But Enki didn't. Enki's a bit kind-hearted, so he sent them down to their second garden. Go read the Bible. And that's when they found a cave of wonders, which is more than likely technology in there, because to Adam and Eve, what's a wonder? Nothing. They're not like going to get. Oh, there's gold here. I'm going to go. And there's jewelry here. I'm going to go.
WhatsApp. Someone has sent you a WhatsApp.
It's not like they're going to go. Oh, there's jewelry here. I'm going to go down to the local pawn shop and cash it in. They were the first, sensible humans on this planet. So the Cave of Wonders had to have been the technology, a place where there was, Anunnaki craft, maybe something like that, which had stuff. And of course, the story of that was there was a gate on his garden, on the second garden, and it had a sentry gun, which you all know as. You go on. Who knows what it's called? Come on, I'm gonna test you guys now. So there was a sentry gun that would shoot anything, or laser, should I say, gun, but a sentry gun that was at the gate, so that if any animal or creature tried to come in, it would get shot. Do you know what that was called? Well, I'm hoping you're all writing it down now. Okay, it was a cherub. That's what a cherub was. It was a sentry gun or a gun of some description, or a laser beam of some description, however you want to call it. But on that one, he had that was some sort of sentry gun that would detect movement and shoot. Mayer's read that one. Shane's wrote, I was born in 1962. A couple of years later, and you could have had a song after you. It's the summer of 1965, wasn't it? You're not that old, Shanester. You're only as old as you feel. Take your hand out your pocket. Samantha's wrote, we got a sneak listen to your next video. Yes, you did. It started playing when I turned the computer back on. Yeah, that's the Eridu Genesis. So it's not the full. It's not a full film. It's like 10 minutes or so prior to the feature film that you've already seen. So I'm putting that out on Patreon for everyone to see before before the feature film comes out, which you've already seen. Chantel's wrote, sorry, didn't mean to send. Sorry, I didn't even notice. Sorry, sometimes I close my eyes when I waffle on. D-Boys wrote, what if they were the same? Seems they were taught same way they taught us. Why they seem simple. I think it's the beliefs. So yeah, I hear what you're saying. It's a very good point. Go number one in the class for that. So the Anunnaki taught us. We've got they had the demigods come and teach us. There were 7 at least that we're aware of over time. So Adam was one of them. Believe it or not, he was classed as the Apakalu or Akakalu or something like that. I can never pronounce stuff. Forgive me. I'm in the wrong game, aren't I? The Apakalu. Anyway, so yes, they did teach us, and they told us they taught us, and obviously the first place they taught us was Sumer, and that's where we get everything from: money, laws, everything. So you're saying, which is a very valid question, why, if they taught us, Pythagoras theorem before Pythagoras, then yes, there was Sumerian tablet. British Museum has got it, and the BBC even done a piece on it saying, wow, the Sumerians had the Pythagoras theorem before Pythagoras did, way before. So how come, if we were taught very clever things that shouldn't have been taught back then, not by normal people anyway, how come I say that they're simple? I think they're simple in their. That's why I said I think they're not brainwashed, but they're simple in their beliefs, which is and they follow their beliefs regardless of whether or not it's right or wrong. And that's what makes me think they're simple, because, for me, logic wins, but for them, it's whatever their belief is, and that's stupid to me. It's just to me. People with different beliefs might think, like having a child, doing stuff with an underage person is a no, absolute no. But certain people out there seem to think, that's all right. To me, it's not at all. But they have their beliefs, if you get what I'm trying to say, and that's what the Anunnaki were like. They had stupid beliefs, which allowed people to die and all this kind of stuff, and their morals were slightly different to ours, or mine anyway. I'll say that. There's some certain people out there that seem to have the same morals as the Anunnaki. So, yeah, that's why I say they're a bit simple, because I would look at things and say, no, that's not logical and it doesn't make sense. And they were logical, but their belief system overruled logic and they did stupid things. Although saying that, Enlil did... there's a tablet. I've actually got the tablet. It's called... where did I put it? I've got a tablet somewhere. Enlil and Sud, yeah. You can look it up. Sorry, I'm just pulling it up on my computer. Enlil and Sud. I found the tablet. I need to do a video on it. It's where he... So, do you remember I say to you guys that the Moorhen translations, I found about 70 odd, 80% of the things that they say in those translations. This is another one where Enki did naughty things with someone that he shouldn't have done. And it starts with, it's called Enlil and Sud, but believe it or not. Segment A, 1 to 8. She was faithfully sitting, ? On ... In other words, it was scratched or something. Admirable and full of charms, and this is where he ends up, pretending that he's a different animal, even though he's not. And there's the same story as the Greek Zeus. The same story where he pretends he's an animal and seduces this young girl. So yeah, I need to do a video on that, actually, you guys. So yeah, the more and more I research, the more and more I find that the Moorhens and Zachariah Sitchin's translations of Moorhens or interpretations of the Moorhens is accurate, because I'm finding the same things. Scrolling down, Samantha's wrote, do you think that orbs are entities that use us as vessels on Earth, like living parasite and plasma? Absolutely, yes. So I heard back in the 80s, because I've been doing this from the 70s, I heard in the 80s, so I used to buy magazines and my mum had to read them to me and whatever, so I couldn't read, still can't, that we're containers. So there was an abduction case, and the abductee was told by little greys that we're just containers. And I heard that back then, and I was thinking, what are we containers for? Blah, blah, blah. Back then I didn't really understand the orb connection and everything else, but it stuck with me, the containers. And then as time went on, and I started to piece together that these orbs, are eternal, and therefore we're just a blink, therefore we're just a container for them, it made more sense. And then about a couple of years ago, someone sent me a video, or I was watching Bob Lazar, because obviously back in the 80s, Bob Lazar had his whole thing and was on news in America and everything else, but over here, and he had some sort of video series that he was doing, but over here I didn't get it, so I didn't know about everything that Bob Lazar done or spoke about. A couple of years ago, I was going through Bob Lazar's videos again, because I like to, the way I remember stuff is I watch or reread it over and over and over again later on, and it adds stuff as well, sometimes like this exact case. So I watched his videos, and he said that he saw a document, I think it was, that said we're containers, and I was like, wow. That's two different individuals, one abductee and one read the papers that says we're containers. And since then I have heard stories of people seeing orbs coming out on a spaceship out of a dead person, going along a tube, going into what looked like a cloned person, so on and so on. So from all of that, I would say that obviously to us, we're not containers. We're just living our lives and that's it. But to an orb, we're containers, because if they live for eternity, then we're just a blink of an eye to them. So that it means nothing to them to learn from us and be with us. But so yes, the answer to your question is yes, they are. But I mean, in a parasite, sometimes I do think they help people. There's so many stories of where a voice in someone's head says, watch out, jump, things like that. So there is a possibility that they may help us. So not necessarily totally parasitic, more symbiotic maybe. Samantha wrote 7:41. I don't think Jane's here. That's a time check, running behind a fair bit. Oh, thank you. Sorry, there's only 22 messages. That's why sometimes I do waffle on, because I think, oh right, okay, there's only 20 messages. Some of those are just people chatting to each other. So Samantha's wrote, skip to Maloo, outer history, or you'll be here all night long. Thank you very much. I will skip to the loo. Andy's wrote cherubim. Well done, Andy. If you said that before I said it, spot on. Well done. Get a gold star for that. I'm trusting you said it before I said it. And I know you watch my videos, so I know you should have known that. So well done. D-Boys wrote, Cave of Wonders seems to be where they stacked up gems, gold, sent to Nibiru, or caves, Adam and Eve. Their food also being larger, so engineered for us. Sorry, so one question at a time there. So Cave of Wonders seems to be where they stacked up gems. So the thing is, if it's Cave of Wonders from the Anunnaki's point of view, it really wouldn't be wonders for them, because they know how to manipulate it. Obviously, they can build amazing structures with rocks and gemstones, etc. I guess the only thing they probably would have thought would have been, see, gold to them back then, when 100,000 years ago, was just a material that they was using for their planet. There was no, let's wear gold. They may have put some gold on, but it wasn't as valuable as we see it now. So for them, it was a tool to help repair their planet. Lapis lazuli, if you read about that, they went mental over that. So if anything in the cave, it may have been stacks of lapis lazuli, but that would have to have been from the perspective of the Anunnaki to say it said Cave of Wonders. From Adam and Eve's point of view, they wouldn't know really what lapis lazuli was, so that doesn't make sense. So it had to have been something that they'd not seen on the spaceship for the first 24 years of life. So it would have had to have been something that made them wondrous. Could it have been other creatures that Enki had been toying with in this cave, like hybrids, which in centaurs and minotaurs and so on? Could that have been it, or could it have been technologies in this place? Now, bearing in mind it was in his garden, so to have a cave in his garden, and you've got to remember he walks and they can hear the sound of his footsteps, so he was a real person in the Bible. God didn't just suddenly, and bearing in mind if you're 20 foot tall, you probably might hear their footsteps. So yeah, I don't know what the Cave of Wonders was, but I think it was more like a room that the Anunnaki had as opposed to a cave. It was in their garden. It wasn't a garden, so to have suddenly build a place with a cave sitting there, probably not. And I mean, we kind of know where one of his buildings is, because Project Gutenberg.org has found where his building was, and it's got like 8 bedrooms and stuff like that, and with a fence all around it. Thank you, Nicole. How are you, Nicole? I hope you're well. You don't have to, but thank you very much, Nicole. So yeah, I think that was, sorry, thank you everyone for letting our True History catch up. Please feel free to comment. Thank you, Samantha. That was a clever idea there. D-Boys wrote, their food also big, larger, so re-engineered for us. Well, they would have let us eat our food here, so their food would have been, I mean, when you say their food's bigger and larger, I mean, we've got small things like small pasta, and we've got small plum, and compared to for example a watermelon, or compared to what do you call it, pumpkin. So the size is a huge pumpkin. Are we going to eat all that in one go? Probably not. So I think it's horses for courses. I think they probably had small things on their planet. We have small rice, for example, and they may have had small rice as well, but they just may have had to have eaten more of it. So I wouldn't say just because they were large that all the food was equivalent to them being large. Personally, I mean, they could have engineered food, which is what you wrote about engineered. They could have engineered their own food to be larger. I mean, if you look at the crop circles, not the crop circles, the stone circles that they created, such as Adam's calendar, etc., which many other stone circles, possibly over 1 million in Africa alone. When you do the research, if you watch my amazing documentaries, you'll see that by doing what they did, it made the crop grow quicker. Now, why would they want the crop to grow quicker in those areas? Because there's millions and millions of humans by then. You're talking millions. And of course they needed to feed them. And how better to feed them than have the crop grow bigger and larger and quicker. And that's what these stone circles did. Go watch my documentary, you'll see the evidence for it. So yes, so by having certain energy frequencies, it stimulated the crops, which is what the radiation does for the crop circles, the genuine crop circles, as opposed to the stone circles. D-Boy's right, I don't get when ate the genitalia after wrestling rulership, why kill him? So they had the 7. So what D-Boy's asking is when Alula came to Earth, he was granted or given permission to have Earth as the his place, basically by finding it. King Anu, Enki, and Enlil basically stushed him in the back and didn't let him have the rulership of Earth. So they said, right, have another wrestling match. They already had a wrestling match on Nibiru, which is why Alula lost. So he had no choice but to have another wrestling match with King Anu. So he had a wrestling match here on Earth with King Anu and lost. And now that means he is going to not be king. He's going to be nobody again. And he was a king previously before he wrestled King Anu the first time. So he got so enraged that while he was on the floor, they wrestle naked. That's where the Greeks get their wrestling from. While he was on the floor, he bit off and swallowed. Although in my movie I put him spitting it out because I didn't want to. So anyway, the story is that he swallows, which he does. I mean, if you look at Kronos, the story of Kronos, same thing. That's who Alula was. Kronos. I'm the only one that worked it out with evidence. I'm the only one that worked it out at all. Feel free to watch my amazing documentaries. Yes, I'm big-headed, but I put the work in. So why did they kill him? Well, they had a judge. They had 7 judges. So they did my movie. I didn't bother putting the 7 judges. I just had 3. But so my movie isn't 100%. It's about 95% accurate. Certain things there wasn't no need to put in, confuse people. But they had 7 judges, which is what they do. They had judges for big, disputes, and the judges would decide. And the judges decided that he should be put to death. But Enki then turned around and said, well, hang on a minute. He's swallowed the manhood of King Anu, which, to be honest, I kind of think it must be small. I mean, when you look at, I know it sounds stupid, but when you look at the carvings of the gods in Rome and Greece, etc., and don't hate me, guys, but when you look at the carvings of it, it's always a cold day. If you get what I'm saying, guys, you know what I'm on about. It's always a cold day. It's never a mild day. It's always a really cold day. And you got to then put yourself in the position that they actually bred with humans, which were 5-6 foot if we're lucky, and they were possibly up to 20 foot. So you got to think, well, hang on, how'd that work? And I have a feeling their things were small, because I don't know about you, I don't think, unless it's a really, really, really cold day, I don't know if someone will be able to swallow mine in one go. But But there you go. So anyway, might have to chew it a bit. Sorry. Where did this go? But you get my point. So I don't think they had large manhood, which was, probably fine because the females probably had smaller, because when you look at Inanna sleeping with, so Inanna was an Anunnaki, she slept with human men who seemed to die in the night. She probably sat on them or something. But she was probably 18 foot herself. So, the logic is like, hang on a minute, how's that going to work? Is she even going to notice anything? And then you start thinking, well, maybe our humans are a little bit bigger than what the Anunnakis are, or now equivalent to what the Anunnakis are, even though they're taller. And so that would make sense why, for example, Gilgamesh's mum was an Anunnaki. So you've got to think, well, how's that all work? So maybe their appendages and things are slightly different, smaller. So anyway, they said, sorry, going back to the question. So the thing was that because he swallowed King Anu's private part, he was going to be poisoned because of that, which now I did look into whether or not if someone bit off a manhood, would they be poisoned here on Earth? And the answer was no. So it means that there's something in their biology that would have made them different, which then goes to the question as why do they inbreed when, why are they not getting deformities? And is it because of whatever it is that they're slightly different? You've got to remember they're probably blue blood. Chances are they're blue blood, copper-based blood, and we're iron, I think it is. Forgive me if I got it wrong the wrong way, but and that's where you get if you breed two copper-based with iron, you can end up with someone with Rh negative blood, which makes a lot of sense. So they banished him on Mars, which you could say, well, how do we know that? Well, the story of Kronos, he was banished to a far, far, far away place, which was Mars. So yeah, so that's why they let him die. Basically, they was going to kill him, but they banished him because he was a king. So Samantha wrote, what did Adam and Eve eat on the ship for 24 years if they can't eat Anunnaki food? It would have been our plants. They would have put our soil up there, etc. And we kind of know how that would have played out, because if you believe the Moorhen translations or Zachary Sitchin's versions of the Moorhen translations, then you'll see that when they come to finally, because they kept failing, they come up with the idea of using earth, a bowl from, they basically made a, instead of using their own beakers and everything else with their sterilisation, they used stuff from earth, and then they realised then that okay, we need earth stuff, not their stuff, to keep these humans alive. So they would have obviously made sure that our food is on their ship, as well as their own food, which makes a lot of sense, which is why they were told not to eat that. Because otherwise, imagine living somewhere in a garden and you're not allowed to eat something. Now, the Bible makes it sound like you're only not allowed to eat one particular bit of food that's there, but that's obviously not the case, how it works out. D-Boys wrote, is that symbolism for something else? I'm guessing that was going back to the killing. No, I would, if, let's say, the story of Kronos matches 100% with the story of Alula. So if that's what you're referring to, so I would say no, they definitely got rid of him and killed him. Nicole's wrote, hello, Outer History and all. Hi Nicole, nice of you to join, I hope you're well. Nicole's wrote, do you think aliens give certain people special abilities, or could abilities be linked to the orb? Interesting question. Go number 2 in the class for that. Interesting question. Do you think aliens give certain... So there are supposed cases of aliens doing things to help people where they've got, where right, for example, there was a guy that kept being abducted and was taught how to read symbols, which basically is similar to crop circles. And so by seeing about 5-6 crop circle type images, he could read a whole book. So is that a special power? Probably not. Then they have helped people with their illnesses, removing tar from their lungs, etc. But that's only for their own benefit, really, because obviously if they're monitoring someone, they don't want that person to die. So it makes sense that they would be doing it for their own selfish reasons as opposed to help a human, because otherwise they'd be going around helping everyone. Have I ever heard of anyone having... I have heard... pushing my memory now. I think I've heard a story where someone said they could do something after they were abducted. Can't remember what it was. Can't remember if it was read mind or... it was either telekinesis or telepathy. I can't remember which one it was. Whether that's true or not, because to be honest, if I did actually look into what would happen if I had the ability to read someone's mind. How could I make billions? And believe it or not, it's not that easy. You'd sit there and think, well, I'll take someone's PIN number, but then there's cameras, and so they'd see you drawing it out. Okay, so how can I make millions and billions from knowing what someone's thinking? And believe it or not, it's really difficult. The thing that I ended up with is going on a stage show. It's crazy. I was like, no, that can't be right. But all of the ways I could try and think of, like counting cards, because they, knowing what the person's thing. After a while, they'll boot you out and they'll beat you up. So, in the end, having, the best thing that I could come up with was standing next to a woman thinking, hey, how you doing? And hoping that I could read her mind saying, yeah, he's all right, or whatever. So it's not, yeah, so is it a gift? And the thing is, I have looked into and thought about telepathic abilities. If we all had them, no one's got any private thoughts. And so, it will become a horrible... It's pretty much like we're now, where we can't type anything without someone knocking at your door. Police thoughts, they're policing your thoughts. So it's a horrible thing. So no, I haven't really heard properly, with any credibility of any aliens given anything special powers. The only thing, going back to the orb part of it, it's possible that children, as they're growing up, may access the memories of a previous person that the orb was with and learn to play the piano early because they already played it. Something like that is the only ability that I would probably imagine that would be available. Thank you for your question. Scrolling down, Nicole's wrote, do you think him swallowing his private part was to further antagonise him? He could have just spat. Yeah, we can sew things back on now, and they're obviously well advanced than us because they created us. So the idea that if you swallow it, it'll probably go into your stomach, and the chances of getting it back out and sewing it back on is probably slim to none. But if you spat it out, if they can get you to someone that can look after it or freeze it or whatever for a short period of time, I have heard cases of people having it sewed back on. Probably asking for an extra couple of inches at the same time, but never mind, that's probably what people do. But yeah, so I wouldn't have said it was to antagonise him. I would have said it was to make sure that he didn't have any heirs. You got to remember, their whole thing is about bloodlines. It really is. So if their king couldn't have any more children, then that's a good thing, even though he probably knew he would get punished. Yeah, like I say, the way they think is different to us. Obviously, if I wrestled someone, I probably wouldn't bite their thing off, but he did. So their mindset is different to ours. I've come up to the end of the messages. So thank you very much, everybody. Unless there's any more messages, I will love you guys and leave you. Hope you've enjoyed this. If you've never listened to me before and want to watch some of my amazing documentaries with evidence, obviously I can't give you every bit of evidence here, but I have got the documentaries that shows it. Visit my website, click on my profile picture, and you'll see my website link there. And then if you're interested in the Anunnaki movie, that's coming out on the 19th of September, which some people have already watched and said it's brilliant. So let's be honest, it is good because I've made it. Sorry. But it is good. Hernes wrote, have you heard of the cryptid spring-heeled jack? No, I've not heard of that. Cryptid spring-heeled jack. No, I'll type that down and try and look at that. Spring-heeled jack. I'll try and look at that another time. Thank you. I'll just... okay, English folklore. No, I had not heard of that one. Interesting. Thank you very much for that. I'll look into that, and I'll probably do a video on that. Thank you, Hernley. Clarice has put hearts and clappy hand and praying hands and stuff. Thank you very much, Clarice. Oh, bless. Chantel's wrote bye. Thank you very much, Chantel, for even staying and listening. Samantha's wrote, great live, no numpties, love it, thank you everyone. I do like the numpties, but okay, that's fair enough. Not everyone likes them. Samantha's wrote, good night, Aldrich. Oh, bless you. Thank you very much, guys. And I will catch you all again very, very soon. And just to let you know, that Eridu Genesis, Anunnaki Genesis is going to be out in a couple of days on Patreon, free of charge. It's only about 10 minutes, but it's a prequel to the feature-length 2-hour movie that's coming out on the 19th of September. So it's only available on Patreon, but it's free. You don't have to pay. But I put it there just so that it's somewhere to put it. Okay, right. I will let you guys go. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, any moderators that's been here, and thank you all to the excellent questions. Take care, everybody. Bye. Bye.